Hey guys, I'm here to do a quick walkthrough on how to set up TB6612FNG SparkFun Motor Driver using Arduino Uno. So in this tutorial, here are the materials that will be used. We will need an Arduino Uno and a breadboard, wires, two DC motors, an external 5-volt source, and our motor driver. In this case, our motor driver is not really soldered as you can see here, but the one that we will be using in this video would be soldered, which I'll show you later in the hardware setup. So all these materials can be easily ordered online in places such as Amazon or DigiKey, but this specific motor driver was bought in the DigiKey website, so the link can be found in the description below. So what is this SparkFun motor driver? This motor driver is basically a dual H bridge, as it can control up to two DC motors at the same time. Unlike other H bridges, this motor driver can control not only the speed and direction, but it can also stop and brake. Some specs for this motor driver are: motor supply voltage ranges from 2.5 volts to 13.5 volts, while its logic supply voltage is from 2.7 volts to 5.5 volts. So the reason why we have two voltage supply here is because the motor voltage is for powering the motors. That's why the voltage is high. It can go up to 13, while the logic voltage is for powering this motor driver itself, the chip itself. And the output current when the motors are continuously used is around 1.2 amps, and it has 3.2 amp peak. So the driver has 4 modes. It has clockwise, counterclockwise, short brake, and stop. This table shows how we will set up each pin to achieve one of the 4 modes. We'll talk about this later in the software setup of the video. So this is our motor driver chip or board. Before we delve into the hardware and software setup, we will first need to know what each pin on the motor board represents. So we have 3 pins here for the ground, which are all connected together. And we have the motor voltage pin and the logic voltage pin. As mentioned before, this motor voltage or the VM pin is to provide power for the motors, while the VCC or the logic voltage pin is to power up our motor driver chip. And we also have our PWM pins. So we have 2 because we can control up to 2 motors. So one motor should have its own PWM pin. And also we have our input control pins for both motors, motor A and motor B. And they have their corresponding output pins. And lastly, we have the standby pin, which enables the H bridges to work when set as high. Alright, now that you know which pins do what, we will move on how we will connect our motor driver to the Arduino and the motors. Here, I am showing you a fritzing breadboard view of the circuit we are going to build. We will set motor A to be the left motor and motor B to be the right motor. We will also connect the VM pin of the motor to the 5-volt battery source, 5-volt to 9-volt. It's not very strict as long as it's more than 5 volts. And the output pins A01 and A02, B01, B02 over here will be connected to our 2 motors. To connect the motor board to the Arduino, these are the GPIO pins that will be used. Now that I've told you how to set up the hardware, here's a time-lapse video of me connecting the wires to the motor driver chip. Alright, now after our circuit is done, we will now start to work on our code. So we need to open a sketch in the Arduino IDE, like what I have here. And the first thing that we need to do is define our variables as how we've set our pins in the hardware setup. Remember that motor A would be the left motor and motor B would be the right motor. Then after that, we just need to set up these pins as outputs inside our void setup. So the first thing that we need to do inside the void loop is to set the standby pin to high, because this allows our motors to drive. And in order to move forward, both motors, motor A and motor B, must be spinning clockwise. Do you remember the table that I showed you at the beginning of the video? Over here. To make the motors spin clockwise, we must make their input 1 high over here and input 2 low. So that's what we did here. Input 1 high, input 2 low. Same thing for motor B. And since our PWM signal is an analog signal, we have to enter a value between 0 and 255 to control the speed. Close to 0 is low speed, and close to 255 is high speed. So over here, I set them as both high speed. And then the opposite applies to moving backward. So going back again to the table, for counterclockwise, input 1 should be low, input 2 should be high. That's what we did for moving backwards. Alright, and now what if we want our motors to stop or break? So we need to make both inputs low, and yeah, now the motors won't move. It's just gonna stop. Now for turning right or left, let's go with turning right first. We have to make both motors spin the opposite ways. So for turning right, motor A, which is the left motor, would turn clockwise. High for input 1, low for input 2, while right motor would have input 1 low and input 2 high, which is turning counterclockwise. Then just the opposite needs to be done for the turning left. Alright, so it's basically our code for our DC motors, and we need to upload this code in our Arduino, and let's observe how our motors run. Right, onto the demo for the DC motors. Okay, I've run the Arduino code, and right now they're both moving forward. So you can see they're moving clockwise, clockwise. Alright, and now let's make them move backwards. Alright, now they're moving counterclockwise, which is this way. There we go. So are these motors moving backwards now? Alright, now we want them to turn right. Now for turning right, we have the left motor going clockwise and the right motor going counterclockwise. So this one should be going this way, which is what's happening. And this one should be going the other way, which is going here, which is what's happening. Alright, now we're turning left. So this motor, the left motor, is turning counterclockwise, and then the right motor is turning clockwise. There we go. So that's our demo for the motor drivers. For more resources, you can read through the datasheet and the hookup guide for this motorboard. Links are in the description below. And there we have it. I just showed you the basics on how to use the TB6612FNG SparkFun Motor Driver. Really hope this helps, and have a great day everyone.